Let's finish the back of this bike up. We're getting close. Okay, go ahead and grab these brackets right here. Now yours will be black, so don't pay attention to my copper colored ones, but grab those and we're going to fasten these right here. There's a right and left bracket. If you'll notice, it has a wide slot that's close to the edge, and then it has a narrow slot that's a little further away from the edge. So what it does, the wide slot goes against the motorcycle, like that, with this slot back. And then we use the shoulder bolt, or the flange bolt it's called. We're going to stick the flange bolt through there, and then put the nylock flange nut on the inside. So do that. And then what I want you to do, I want you to just snug these up and then back them off just a little bit to where it just barely turns. See how that just barely rotates in there? We want this to, everything we want to leave loose until we get everything set, and then we'll tighten it up. Okay, make sure that the 5 wires are hanging out of the frame here, just like this. And then remove these bolts. Take the nuts off the bottom. We're going to use these on the bottom. And then make sure your gas tank bolt is loose so this moves up and down. If the gas tank's on there, just loosen it up so we can slide this plate in. Okay, this plate is going to slide right in there like that. And then we'll go ahead and put these bolts up through the bottom. Here's the bolt with the washer. Snug those bolts up and then back them off just a little bit. We want all this stuff to float, to be able to move. And then go ahead and mount your license plate supports. And there again, snug them up and then back them off just a little bit so that they move. Okay, if you'll notice, it's the wide side on there and there, so the wide side out and the narrow side to the center. There again, snug them up, but let them float just a little bit. And the nylock nut goes on the bottom. Now go ahead and mount your license plate bracket and your license plate. And this is, the top edge tilts out this way, not back. It tilts out, so your light shines better on this. And then just leave this loose again. Leave this loose for now. And we're going to go ahead now. Pay attention to this sequence that we tighten the screws up, because it's pretty important. Next, we want to tighten these 2 bolts here on both sides. Now, before we do that, let's just go ahead and snug these up. Let's just go ahead and just, not real tight, just tighten them up a little bit. These 4. What that'll do, this will keep this nice and flat, so when we tighten these, it'll be flat to the bike. So, snug those up just a little bit, and then we'll tighten these up. Do both sides. Now go ahead and loosen these back up just a little bit, just so that everything floats. The sides float. And now we can go ahead and put our butt on the bike. Okay, grab your license plate light. This is that light that you worked on earlier. Go ahead and grab that, and then if you'll notice, the light goes down and the black hood goes to the top. So what you do is you just slide the wire in through the slot like that, and then go ahead and put the light on the plate mount there. Don't snug these up too much. Don't get carried away, because that's just going in plastic. So go ahead and snug that up, and then we'll show you how to run the wires. You'll notice I put a couple of wire ties, one here and one here. I left them loose. Leave them kind of loose and big so you can run the brake light wire through it too when after you put the butt on the bike. So just run the wire through there, and we're going to tie this up kind of down to this end so the tire doesn't hit it when it comes up. So anyway, run that wire through that wire tie and through this wire tie. And then under here, now what I did on this, I ran it through the there's an opening right here and there. I ran it through there so it'll kind of hold it up. See how it runs through this signal light rubber hose, and it'll kind of keep it up tight. And then I ran it over here, under here, and out here, out the bottom of the frame here. You kind of have to fish it through there, but we're going to want to hook this up with these wires after we get the butt on the bike. Now we can go ahead and put the butt on your Cafe Racer. Okay, we're going to use the screws here. Now these are the ones that have the rubber washer. It's a rubber lined steel washer that goes on with a rubber toward there. We put those on there for you, so you shouldn't mistake those. Anyway, these screws go in here on both sides. And then the ones without the rubber washer, they go here. So we're going to go ahead and install all this stuff. Go ahead and snug these up, and while you snug these up, push down on it as you tighten these. Now you don't need to, if your paint is pretty fresh, you don't want to get too carried away because that actually could put little marks in your paint. So if your paint's still kind of soft, hasn't cured for about a week or more, just snug them up, but don't get too carried away because you don't want to mark that paint. And leave these loose. And I'm going to show you how all this stuff lines up. Go ahead and snug these up, pushing down here, and then what we want to do, we want to get all this stuff centered on here, and there's some little steel bosses down here too on both sides. We want to make sure that the lip here covers those little steel bosses. Now what you want to do, you want to go ahead and line these up so that these edges are flush. And then you can go ahead and kind of leave a little bit of a gap there too. It doesn't hurt to have a little bit of gap so that won't chip that paint. So leave a little bit of a gap. And then I'll show you how to tighten the screws under this butt. Okay, now we're going to reach under the butt here like this, and we're going to tighten these screws. This one on this side and one on the other side. We'll do those forward screws first. You can use either a 1/2 inch or a 13 millimeter wrench. Just reach under there and you'll feel them, and go ahead and snug those up. You can wrench those pretty tight. Okay, the next screws we want to tighten are the 2 license screws on each side. Now while we tighten these, you can use a 13 millimeter on the top and a 1/2 inch on the bottom, or vice versa. Go ahead and snug those up. Now while you're tightening those, make sure that your license is centered. Get to the back of the bike and make sure this is centered on the bike. You don't want it to be crooked when you look back. So make sure that license bracket is nice and centered as you tighten those up. Okay, the last screws you want to tighten are these 4 on your license bracket. What I did is I shoved the license plate up all the way as I tighten these. That way it leaves a little less gap right here. So go ahead and snug those up last. And then we're ready to mount the tail light. I'll show you a cool way to drill the holes for this tail light. So what you do is you feed the wires down through the hole. Now set that light on there, and it should say Premier up to the top. It's not super critical, but I like to have it so you can read the letters the way they are. Okay, go ahead and center this from the back of the bike. Make sure the 2 holes are parallel. And then hold that in place. Make sure it's centered in the boss. And then we give you this drill bit in the kit. So go ahead and just hold that with your fingers and go ahead and drill that first hole. I already drilled that ahead of time, so that drilled really easy. But anyway, okay, drill the first one. And then what you do, you take the mounting screw and you put that in the hole, and then that'll hold it in place while you drill the second hole. So go ahead and drill that second hole while that screw's in there. Now let's be really careful when we tighten this light to the butt here. Go ahead and grab either a 10 millimeter or a 3/8 wrench, and we'll reach under the butt there and just snug these up just a little bit at a time. Just a little bit until that just quits moving in there. So we don't want to tighten this too much because we could crack this plastic. So just go back and forth a little bit at a time just until it quits moving. That's tight enough. Now we want to go ahead and wire tie the wires. Just follow the same path as you did the license plate wire. Just follow that and go ahead and snug those wire ties up. We want to tuck these wires up under the bottom so that they're not visible, and they don't hit the tire. So look under there, make sure that's nice and neat and tidy under there. And then they run up, and then they come out this below this frame rail right here. Now if you'll notice, I've plugged all the wires in. We've got the brown to brown, black to black, and red to red. There's 5 wires total. And then go ahead and, this wire tie you did before, so go ahead and wire tie one here too. And then we're going to turn the lights on, make sure everything works. Okay, I've turned the key on, and I'm going to check the lights. Looks like this one comes on really nicely. The license plate bracket light's on. Go ahead and hit your brake pedal. And the brake light works. So go ahead and double check all your lights. And then we're going to tuck those wires in. Oh, by the way, I took this off just temporarily so I can work this a little bit, and then I'll put this back on. Okay, I've gone ahead and the wire tied here and here. I've tucked the wires down in there. You want to tuck them in nicely because when the side cover's on, you don't want to look through and see the wires. So make sure you tuck them in there. Make sure they're kind of back away from the frame rail there. Okay, that's about it. Go ahead and double check all the screws and nuts and bolts, and then we're going to go ahead and put the seat on next.